Hello, this is Raimu, and this is the February 2020 recap video for my stream and game, Omnia Regna. I'm going to be doing a voiceover for a week-to-week progress on the game, like about a minute or maybe not even that per week. So this is a quick way for you to catch up on the progress of my game and stream if you haven't been here in a while. So most of the February was split up between rewriting the game's NPC scripts, which really needed an overhaul, and updating the GM items panel. So putting together a way for the game master or the admin to mess around with objects in the game like this. So that was quite a bit of work. I also went and made a Python script to correct issues with in-game items. So some of the in-game items were orphaned, like they were lost, and other ones had attributes that needed to be updated to fit the latest scripts. So wrote that, and at the end of the month went through, and it was a long time waiting, but needed to go through and fix some of the bugs in the game's clustering algorithm. So let me go through week by week and show you what we did. In the first week of February, I finished up rewriting the game's NPC scripts. So, as I talked about in the January recap, the scripts for the game's NPCs were in pretty bad shape. They had been developed without using test-driven development. They were sort of a mess. There were bugs. And rather than trying to fix those bugs, sort of putting band-aids on already broken code, decided to just toss it all and rewrite them from scratch. So you see me here basically testing the reconstructed scripts to make sure they're still working. The most complex script that I had is the one that is allowing this NPC, George, to lead us from one spot to another in the dungeon. And along the way, he's supposed to aggro on and attack any enemies he sees. And if you wait too long and he gets too far away from you while he's leading you out, he'll stop and wait for you for a little bit. And if you don't catch up, he goes back to base. So there are quite a few sequences and moving parts in that, and I was just running through here to make sure it was all working. I had built up all of the subroutines I needed over the previous 2 weeks, and I had just been putting them together here in the first week of February. In the second week of February, I shifted gears away from NPC scripts and on to making a panel for the game master or the admin to maintain the items in the game. So this has a few different purposes. Here I'm showing how I can look at the contents of a container and modify both the items' appearances as well as their contents and how they're linked together. So in this panel, I can click on items in the game or containers in the game and show them in the panel and then drag them around, just like a player could do if they're looking into a container or looking at their own inventory. So there are a lot of different things I added during this week. For example, changing the appearance, changing different attributes, and cloning items, moving them in and out of the game. So a lot of intricate little pieces there. For example, when you move an item into the game, you're adding a position component, but if you're moving it out, you're removing the component. And then where you're dragging to and from in the panel requires you to know what the container's ID is, what slot it is. And if you're moving it from the world into a container, then it's doing multiple things at once. It's finding the container, finding the slot, taking away the position component, putting the item in the container. So a lot of little pieces went into this. In the third week of February, I had decided it was time to try to recover lost items. So during the previous 6 months or so, there had been items in the game, but there were many cases where items could get lost. A lost item is one that still exists in the game, having an item component, but is neither in the game, in other words, does not have a position component, nor is it to be found within the inventory of any player or container. So to locate them, I decided I'd write a Python script that would basically fetch all items in the game and then compute which items are holding what other items, and then figure out if there are any items not being held and not in the world anywhere, to take them and put them into a global container what I did for global container was I already had a global entity I was using to record things like where a new player should be placed in the game when they create their account for the first time. So I figured, why not just add a container component to that entity, and now that entity doubles as both initial player position and other attributes like that, as well as a handy storage container. So having that container in place with the Python script, once I had it debugged, I was able to recover all those items. 4 or 5 swords and a whole bunch of piles of gold. And using that script and kind of extending on it, I also worked on having the script locate items that had old attributes, for example, swords that could not be equipped, and updated the script to add the required attributes to repair those items. And I plan to evolve this script in the future for any kind of mass changes or database migrations, that kind of thing, that have to do with items. In the 4th week of February, I worked a little bit on a task that I've been putting off for many months, which was debugging the underlying cluster technology in the game. So we use an implementation of the Raft consensus algorithm, which lets me run the game as a set of programs, not just one. And they all run the same code, but only one copy or instance at a time is actually running the game. It's the one that's designated as the cluster leader, and there's an election process to pick the leader and all that. The other servers are called followers, and they basically just sit there and make copies of the game state as it changes, and they stand ready to take over as leader should the leader server die. And this helps with making sure that we have different copies of the game for redundancy and also fault tolerance. So if the server that's running the game crashes unexpectedly, within a few seconds, one of the other servers that's been running as a follower can take over as leader, and the game can continue without any data loss. So I worked on this panel here, the cluster status, adding things like showing the port numbers, showing some statistics about delays between servers, and also making it possible to include a server in the configuration that actually isn't participating or running. So we call them offline or sleeping. And that really greatly improves my ability to have standby servers, take servers on and offline, that kind of thing. And that about wraps it up for the month of February in 2020. As always, if you'd like to, please come by and watch the game development live. I stream this most weekdays at twitch.tv/Raimu8354. I'd love to say hi to you and have you watch the stream. So until next time, my friends, take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.